Welcome to my channel, and we invite you to watch a video with our new original story. Leo was known in his hometown as a troublemaker and a poor student, but he always did what his heart told him to do. And his heart told him to do various things, but they were always just. His grandmother, Rose, who was both mother and father to him since his parents had long passed, could only throw up her hands when the townspeople, angrily slamming their already flimsy gate, came to complain about her grandson. "Rose, do you know what your Leo did just now?" the neighbor scolded. "He propped my screen door shut with a stick again. And I was running late for the bus to the farmer's market. Watch out, I'll call the cops on that hooligan of yours." "I don't care that he's an orphan. You'd sell your soul for $1, Grandma Rose said, defending Leo. "You let your own mother starve, while you haul all the milk, eggs, butter, and homemade sausage to the market. The old woman is starving and begging around town. My Leo has invited her home for a meal countless times." "He's lying. The boy made it all up." The neighbor's anger noticeably subsided. "Then why prop the door shut?" "So it's a lesson for you," replied Rose. "Get off my property, or I'll be the one to report you for taking your mother's pension checks and putting them in your own savings account." The neighbor scoffed, wanted to say something more, but held her tongue and, as she ran off, slammed the gate with all her might once again. "Leo, get over here," Grandma Rose called her grandson, simultaneously slipping a slipper off her foot. "We need to talk." But Leo had long seen the greedy neighbor approaching their house, so he had climbed onto the roof of the shed and was calmly eating sunflower seeds. "What's up, Grandma?" "I'll give you what's up. Why did you prop that shrew's door shut? What if she complains to the sheriff, and they haul you off to the county jail for 15 days, and I have to pay a fine on top of that?" Rose lectured, scolding her grandson. "She deserved it. She's mean to her own grandma, and she kicked our cat so hard it died. I heard all about it." "Well, yes," Rose visibly softened. "That shrew did deserve it. But you stay out of it, you hear me? Get down from there. Do as I say. You won't hit me with the slipper?" Leo looked questioningly at his grandmother. She put the slipper back on and put her hands on her hips. "I won't. Could I even catch you?" You'll finish high school in a month. If only your parents could see you." And the grandmother wiped away her tears with the corner of her handkerchief. "Grandma, don't cry. Everything's fine." "Yeah, right. I'll die from this stressful life and never see you become a decent man. You need a good girl, a smart one, a straight-A student, to keep you in line, you little rascal." And the grandmother showed her grandson a tiny, dry fist. "Where am I supposed to find one of those straight-A students? There aren't enough smart girls to go around for all the guys. There's only one in our class, Laura Donovan, and she's got a mean streak." And Leo burst out laughing, still getting chased by Grandma Rose's old slipper. Little did he know that in 15 years, he would meet his straight-A student, but under completely different circumstances, which were much sadder and far scarier than Grandma Rose's old slipper. Lucy had always been a good girl, a sort of go-to helper for her parents, teachers, and friends. Her mother, who adored classic poetry, had named her Lucille at birth. But it so happened that at home and at school, the sweet girl was always called Lucy. And it was with this name that Lucy entered the world after graduating high school with honors. Only one person called Lucy by her full name. It was her boyfriend, Arthur. Lucy met Arthur in her last year of university. She was studying to be a French translator, considering it the language of romance and love, which she only knew from novels. The inexperienced girl with a naive outlook on life appealed to the shrewd young teaching assistant, whom other, more life-experienced girls wouldn't even look at. Probably because they saw in him a person with a rotten core, hidden behind a handsome, polished exterior. Everything Arthur earned, which wasn't much, he spent on himself, hoping to catch some pretty, naive girl, preferably one with her own place. After all, the polished, handsome man had nothing of his own. He lived in a dorm room, sharing it with 2 other grad students. Having set his sights on the sweet and simple Lucy, Arthur used his good looks and charm and, grabbing a cheap chocolate bar, headed to the registrar's office. There, showering the elderly secretary with compliments, he peeked at student Lucille Warner's personal file, where it was written in black and white that said student did not require housing, as she had her own in the form of a 3-bedroom apartment in the very center of the city. This suited Arthur perfectly, and he began to act. "Hey, how's it going?" Arthur appeared out of nowhere, right in front of the stunned girl. "You're Lucille, right?" "Yes." Lucy blushed like a beet. "I heard you defending your thesis. Great job. I liked it." Arthur continued his advance. "I work as an assistant here, by the way. Yeah, helping out a professor. He'd be lost without me. But I don't plan on being an assistant for long. I want to become a professor too." "Thank you." Lucy blushed even more. "Are you writing a dissertation?" "Not yet, but it's in the plans. For now, I'm building up my knowledge muscles, so to speak. Maybe we could go somewhere to celebrate your A?" "My treat, within reason. Of course," the suitor said nonchalantly. "We could? I know a cheap cafe near my place." Lucy smiled. She was flattered that such a handsome assistant had noticed her. The coffee shop date smoothly transitioned to a cup of coffee at Lucy's apartment, with all the ensuing consequences, and 3 months later, those consequences made themselves known. "We're going to have a little one," she announced, beaming with happiness. "Are you happy?" Lucy, confident that Arthur was dying to become a young father, did not expect the guy to think differently. Arthur was in the kitchen at that moment, finishing off the last of the bacon Lucy had thoughtfully bought just for him, and was completely unprepared for such a turn of events. "Well," he drawled, looking angrily at his cohabitant, who was glowing with joy. "So the fairy tale ends." "The end." "Uh-huh." Lucy smiled, not understanding what Arthur was getting at. "What uh-huh? Are you an idiot, Lucille?" he suddenly screamed, so loudly that Lucy froze, staring in fear at the man who had changed in a minute. "What are we going to do with your kid? We barely have enough to eat ourselves. We haven't even started living properly, and she's happy about a baby bump." "Arthur, what's wrong?" Lucy couldn't find the words to express her outrage. "It's our baby. He already exists. He's the fruit of our love." Arthur raised his hand to the girl, but was afraid to strike, realizing he still had to go to the university with her, and they wouldn't pat him on the head for that. Lucy flinched and turned pale, looking in shock at the person she had adored just a few minutes ago. Even that miserable piece of bacon she had bought only for Arthur because she only had enough money for his portion. She had settled for cheap sausage herself. Arthur looked fiercely at the girl he had been living off of for 3 months and went to pack his suitcase. "Where are you going, Arthur?" Lucy asked plaintively. "I'm leaving you. I'm sick of you. You're so boring it makes me want to howl," Arthur declared. "Should have left a long time ago. I kept feeling sorry for you. What an idiot. And this is what you do to me. You're trying to pin some kid on me, but just so you know, it won't work." And with these words, Arthur shook his fist at her, then continued to pack his suitcase, into which, under the cover of the commotion, Lucy's music player and expensive iron also found their way. "But it's your baby." "How can you say that to me?" Lucy sobbed, choking on her resentment. "That still needs to be proven," said Arthur, scanning the rooms for something else he could take. "What?" Lucy's eyes widened in shock, as if she were seeing Arthur for the first time. "That's what..." Finding nothing else to profit from, he quickly got dressed and left, slamming the door. And Lucy slowly slid down the wall, bursting into bitter tears and cursing the one she believed was responsible for the separation from her beloved handsome man, her unborn child. Lucy took her final exams in her 4th month of pregnancy and did very well. So after receiving her honors diploma, she successfully got a job at a prestigious publishing house as an editor. As for Arthur, 2 weeks after Lucy told him about her interesting condition, he resigned under pressure from the university's academic community. To his surprise and even indignation, the scholars did not share his opinion about the child, and cursing everything, Arthur rode off into the sunset on an Amtrak train to his hometown. There, he got a job as a geography teacher at the local school, where he told everyone what an indispensable employee he had been and how treacherous the university professors were, who, sensing a strong competitor, quickly got rid of a specialist like him. "How did you get the job?" "You're pregnant and will be going on maternity leave. Her friends were surprised when Lucy boasted of her luck. Lucy frowned. She was angry that her friends had brought up a sore subject. "I told them there would be no maternity leave," she declared. "How's that?" The friends exchanged glances and looked at Lucy as if she had lost her mind. "Just like that," said Lucy. "I'll give birth, hire a nanny, and go to work myself. Besides, I'm earning a good salary. I'll even manage to save up for some baby things. Have you found out who it's going to be?" "No, I don't want to," replied Lucy, her lips trembling. "Why? I don't love him. I just don't love him, that's all." And Lucy burst into tears, holding a pickle in her hand. Her friends rushed to comfort her, explaining that it was a psychological trick, transferring her resentment from Arthur to the innocent baby. At these words, Lucy suddenly fell silent and stroked her belly. "You know, you're right. I hate that, Arthur. Forgive me, little one. Mommy was foolish. Mommy will love you more than anyone in the world, but I'm still not going on maternity leave. Whatever you say, sweetie, just don't worry. You shouldn't. And we'll help you. We won't abandon you like that wimp," said one of her friends, who already had a small child and knew perfectly well that no mother, especially a single one, could do without maternity leave. A week later, Lucy had a miscarriage. She lost consciousness from abdominal pain right at work, and her colleagues called an ambulance. Her boss, Veronica Ingram, a wise and powerful woman whom everyone feared like fire, acted quickly and decisively, realizing the matter was serious. "I'll go with you, Lucy. Don't be afraid. Everything will be okay," she said, getting into the ambulance. "Drive faster. Can't you see the girl is in a bad way?" While the surgery was underway, Veronica waited in the hallway, asking the nurses who came out how Warner was doing. When Lucy was moved to a ward, she sat by her side and held her hand. Just as Veronica was about to leave, the doctor who had performed the surgery informed Lucy that she would never be able to have children again. "Tell me, what was I having?" Lucy asked through her tears. "A boy," the doctor answered curtly, and left the room. "My son," Lucy said quietly, staring grimly at the ceiling. "Forgive me for not wanting you." And Veronica stayed with Lucy until late into the night, telling her own secret story, a secret that no one knew. Lucy learned that in her youth, Veronica had found herself in the same situation as her. But the woman hadn't kept the child. She had given up her own flesh and blood. "And then I regretted it my whole life and still blame myself for my cowardice," the Iron Lady of the publishing house cried. "But you're a strong girl, and I respect you." "So that's why you hired me when I was pregnant and gave me a good salary," Lucy gasped. "Yes," Veronica smiled. "If someone had helped me back then and extended a hand, I would never have left my little girl." "And where is she now? Do you know?" "No. I wanted to get her back after 3 months, but when I came to my senses, it was too late. My daughter was adopted by a good family. That's all I know. And it was a long time ago, almost 40 years ago. Now I have everything my heart desires, but I am completely alone." "And now I'm alone too," Lucy cried, feeling more sorry for her companion than for herself. Veronica smiled and patted Lucy's hand. "Don't say that. You're young and have your whole life ahead of you. You'll fall in love again, and you'll have a baby. Who cares what the doctors say? They just like to hand out verdicts. We'll live and see." Unfortunately, Veronica's words did not come true. And 15 years later, Lucy was still alone, without a husband and without a child, but at the head of the publishing house. When Veronica retired, she recommended Lucy for her position. And as the young editors around her started families, Lucy would from time to time be hit by a wave of melancholy in her loneliness. Of course, she had suitors over those 15 years, but she constantly found in them the traits of Arthur, the one who had destroyed her faith in men's honor. And Lucy would ruthlessly break up with them. "Why are you dumping me? We've only been dating for a month," one of them protested. "Sorry, but you're not a real man," Lucy said curtly, paying the entire bill for their dinner at the restaurant where her date himself had invited her. As she left the restaurant without regret or the slightest bit of turmoil, she smirked, remembering how her date had been calculating who owed how much for dinner, flashing an expensive watch on his wrist. "So where do you find them? The real ones?" Her friend and colleague at the publishing house, Jenna. asked her as they warmed up in a coffee shop on a cold evening. Where are they all hiding? Where do you look for them, damn it? Jenna was 40 and, like Lucy, had no family. She was unlucky. Men would leave the bubbly, cheerful Jenna as soon as a more interesting and younger option came along. And Jenna was such a convenient backup plan, which greatly upset Lucy, who saw much more from the outside than those men did. She saw a kind, devoted heart and a pure soul, and also a lot of unspent womanly love. If I knew, I'd tell you, and we wouldn't be sitting here like two lost souls. Lucy sighed and took a sip of hot chocolate. What do you think about the contest? The submissions are already pouring in. The secretary can't keep up with printing them. Jenna changed the subject. We need to select 3 winners and then interview them, Lucy suggested. That'll be great publicity for our publishing house. Jenna grimaced, knowing that this contest took a lot of effort. Is it worth it? She asked. Lucy didn't answer. She was lost in her own thoughts. She had read one poem from the many submitted to the editorial office, and it had struck the deepest chords of her soul. No, it didn't qualify for the contest because of its naive simplicity, but it somehow instantly removed the rose-colored glasses, plunging her into the truth of this world. If only she'd had this poem as a 20-year-old girl, maybe men like Arthur wouldn't have been able to deceive her. What are you reading? Jenna interrupted her thoughts. Lucy silently showed her the envelope with the letter, which contained a sheet of graph paper. Usually, letters were sent to them by email, but this one was on paper, like in the old days. The page was filled with cramped, illegible handwriting, as if the writer couldn't keep up with his thoughts and was in a hurry to capture them on paper. Jenna looked at the postmark and exclaimed in surprise, "It's from a prison!" Lucy flinched and noticed how the other patrons of the coffee shop were looking with surprise at the 2 respectable women, one of whom was waving an envelope. That's strange, she said, and put the letter in her bag. That evening, before bed, Lucy decided to read the letter itself, besides the poem. It was written by a man named Leo, who was also in his early 30s. The style of the letter was simple, and every line in it breathed a desire for freedom and such endless regret that Lucy suddenly wanted to reply, for in this stranger's confession, she felt a familiar pain. Taking a pen, she wrote back to him, not forgetting to inform him that, alas, he would not win the contest, and at the same time inquired about why he was in prison. You wrote to him? Jenna was in shock. But he's a convict. Have you completely lost your mind? What if he's some kind of repeat offender? I used the publishing house address, not my own. Don't worry, Lucy laughed. Let's wait for a reply. The reply took a long time to come. Lucy had started to think that Leo was offended by her direct questions, but 2 months later, a reply from him finally arrived. This time, the letter contained 5 whole pages, and the man's story was so honest that Lucy was amazed by the openness of his soul. A person died because of my mistake, and I blame myself for it every day, the man concluded his message. Before her was the kind of man she had been looking for, and she learned his story. It turned out that Leo was from a small town not far away. It so happened that he had ended up in prison for 3 years. Before that, Leo had worked as a taxi driver in the city where Lucy lived. One day, he got a request to drive someone to his hometown of Oak Creek. Was he curious? Of course. So Leo gladly went to the address, where his former classmate Laura, with whom he had once been friends, was waiting for him. Chatting on the way, Laura begged Leo to let her drive, to which he refused. However, she soon got her way, and Leo gave her the wheel. And as fate would have it, on a bridge, another car cut them off. Laura panicked and lost control of the car. The taxi plunged into the river. Leo pulled Laura out of the water, but it was too late. The girl had died. Leo couldn't prove that Laura had been driving because his fingerprints had been washed off the steering wheel by the water. The driver who had cut off his taxi was never found, and Leo was sent to prison. In addition to being ordered to pay a fine for the car repairs and emotional distress compensation to the deceased girl's mother, he had to sell his apartment and give away all the money. I'm just hoping for the little house in my hometown. My grandma Rose lives there. When I get out, I'll start my life over. And thank you, Lucy. For the letter, Leo finished his confession. How did he know everyone calls me that? I signed my letters Lucille, Lucy wondered aloud, sitting alone in her apartment. But not even an echo answered her in the hallway, and loneliness once again gripped Lucy by the throat, making her cry with self-pity. Not knowing how, her hand reached for a ballpoint pen, and Lucy, taking a sheet of paper, began to write. She wrote everything that troubled her, told him everything her memory held. Her letter was about her youth, about Arthur, about the child she lost, and about her loneliness. Paper will endure anything, but I can't anymore. Sorry for scaring you with my confessions, she ended her narrative. When the letter was sealed, Lucy suddenly felt a huge relief, as if the envelope had locked away all her fears and pain. Lucy was sure that Leo would not write to her again, who needed a woman with so many troubles. But she was wrong. A week later, a huge bouquet of red roses in craft paper was delivered to the publishing house, addressed to Lucy. Inside, she found a note with 3 words written on it. I'm not afraid. Lucy immediately knew who the flowers were from. She was both happy and surprised at what it must have cost Leo to send this bouquet while being in prison. A letter from Leo followed, in which he said that he was very happy to be friends with a person who was a kindred spirit. With a fluttering heart, Lucy replied. They corresponded like this for 6 months, until Leo informed her that he was getting out soon, which sincerely pleased Lucy. I want to surprise him. Meet him at the prison gates, Lucy joyfully told her friend. Leo has nowhere to live, so he'll stay with me for a while. Jenna's eyes widened and she tapped her temple with her finger. Are you out of your mind, honey? Hello? This is an ex-con. They'll tell you anything to get a place to stay from trusting fools like you. Why do you need him? I feel that he's a good person. I believe him, Lucy replied. Uh-huh. Don't come crying to me later. You got it? Because I warned you. Jenna was adamant. Got it, Lucy said calmly, like a person who had made up her mind. I already called the prison warden. He said the same thing, that Leo is in there because of his own foolishness and kind heart. You know what they say, Jenna. There but for the grace of God go I. 4 days later, Lucy's car was parked outside the prison gates. Lucy herself was as nervous as before an exam, so much so that her palms were sweating. After all, the man she had been corresponding with for months was about to be released. She hadn't seen his face, so she was relying on her intuition, which for some reason told her that Leo was a handsome man. They say a woman's intuition is rarely wrong. And so it was, this time. When Lucy saw the prison gates slowly open, she froze with excitement, barely breathing, as a man walked out. He was indeed handsome, a tall, athletic-looking brunette, slightly thin, but that was understandable, he hadn't been on vacation. Leo looked back at the closing gates and smiled. He looked up at the blue sky and the bright June sun filtering through the leaves and took a deep breath of the warm air, which smelled of wet asphalt. Then, with a running start, he jumped into a puddle and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Freedom! Yes!" The pigeons cooing on the lawn took flight heavily and circled above the prison roof. My apologies, Leo shouted after them and laughed, adjusting the backpack with his clothes. That was all he had. Suddenly, across the road, a car door slammed, and a blonde woman, quite pretty, got out of the car and, peering into his face, timidly asked, "Are you Leo?" "I'm Lucy, the one who wrote to you." Startled, Leo froze and stared at the woman, instinctively running a hand over his cheeks. Damn, I should have shaved before getting out, but the guys said it was a bad omen, Leo thought, and said aloud, "Hello, Lucy, it's me." Lucy smiled and crossed the road, then said something that made Leo's heart ache. "I'm so glad you're out. Let's go home. I made soup, the kind you like." Leo grabbed his head in disbelief and said, "What do you mean? I don't even have a home. I sold it to pay off debts." "Well, I do. Did you think I would abandon my friend? And you need to buy some clothes. But I can't have a woman helping me. It should be the other way around." Leo couldn't believe his eyes that Lucy, so beautiful and well-dressed, wanted to help him. "Well, I can," Lucy said firmly. "Your turn will come, don't worry." Leo nodded and smiled, and then, in a burst of gratitude, he hugged the one who had restored his faith in people. "Can I drive?" My hands are just itching. I used to be a driver, he asked breathlessly, looking at the car. Go for it. Lucy handed him the keys without a hint of doubt. I'd be glad. I don't really like driving. I'm a bad driver, to be honest. I'll teach you, said Leo, and sat down with pleasure in the driver's seat, gently taking the wheel. Later, Lucy noted with satisfaction that the car moved as if on rails. It was clear he was a professional. Lost in conversation, they didn't notice they had arrived at her building. Leo hesitated shyly at the doorstep, and Lucy had to literally drag him into the apartment in front of a stunned neighbor. Make yourself at home there, Lucy pointed to the door of what used to be her childhood room. That's your domain? I won't stick my nose in there. So the deal is, you clean your own room? Of course, said Leo. Thanks for helping me out. I'll thank you properly when I'm back on my feet. No need. Just live, Lucy said simply, and went to put the kettle on. And Leo, still not believing his luck, went into the room and quietly closed the door behind him. Everything was girlishly sweet and so soulful that a single tear rolled down Leo's cheek. After a shower, shaved and fresh, Leo came out for dinner, where a set table was already waiting for him. Wow, I haven't had a home-cooked meal in a long time, Leo said, and sat down at the table next to Lucy. Then dig in, Lucy laughed and pushed a large bowl of beef stew towards him. Now, Lucy's apartment was no longer a loner's den, as she used to tell Jenna. The next evening, Lucy noticed that Leo was looking glum. Why the long face? Lucy felt a pang of worry for some reason. It's nothing, just bad luck. Leo waved his hand. I spent the whole day going to taxi companies, looking for a job, but no one will hire me. Nobody wants an ex-con, even if you have golden hands. Can you believe it? There were 5 of us, and the manager hired everyone, even a green kid, but they kicked me out without even listening, like I was some kind of leper. So what now? Go to the factory, Lucy suggested. They always need workers there. Leo slapped his forehead. You're right. Though, to be honest, my soul is drawn to mechanics. I can feel an engine with my heart. I can hear if it knocks or jerks somewhere. When I earn enough for a car, I'll start driving for myself. Then take mine, Lucy offered. Just give me a ride to work. Leo waved his hands in protest. What are you talking about? I won't take your baby. A car is like your other half. It should belong only to you. I won't take it. Don't even try to persuade me. Lucy didn't expect such an answer, and suddenly thought, if he's so protective of a metal machine, how will he treat the woman he loves? He'll probably carry her in his arms. I'm even a little envious of his future wife. The next day of job searching was also unsuccessful. Leo was rejected at the factory too, citing a lack of vacancies. And just as he was starting to vent his frustration to Lucy, his phone rang. Why is my Grandma Rose's neighbor calling me? Leo wondered. The conversation was short. Leo hung up and looked at Lucy with a frightened expression. Grandma died. What do you mean? Died? You were going to visit her tomorrow. Lucy sat down next to him. How did this happen? What happened? The neighbor said she fell asleep and didn't wake up, Leo mumbled, then grabbed his head and started to cry. I should have gone to her right after prison. What a fool I am. I wanted to find a job first, to tell her that everything was fine with me. I wanted my hair to grow out a bit. She remembers me with curly hair. Remembered. Lucy pulled the sobbing Leo's head to her and stroked his closely cropped hair. It's my fault for distracting you. I'm to blame too. We should have gone to your town right away. I didn't even think about your grandma. I'm the fool. And Lucy burst into tears, so hard that now Leo had to comfort her. Suddenly, Lucy wiped her tear-swollen face and said, Let's go to your town. Why are we sitting here blubbering? We need to give the woman a proper funeral. Leo took his backpack and got out all his savings, which he had earned in prison. It won't be as grand as she wanted, for the whole town, he sighed. But I can afford a modest funeral for Grandma. I'll add whatever is needed, Lucy said, and catching his bewildered look, she added, What are you looking at? A grandmother is sacred. The preparations were quick. Lucy made a couple of calls, and they set off for the town. Leo was driving, and Lucy tried to entertain him with stories from her past to keep him from despairing completely. As they passed the bridge, Leo suddenly slowed down. This is where it all happened. That accident, when Laura died, he said quietly, and got out of the car. Lucy didn't follow him, giving Leo a moment to ask for forgiveness from the one who had lost her life here. They drove the rest of the way in silence. Soon, Grandma Rose's house came into view. As soon as the car pulled up, an old woman came out of the neighboring house. "Hello, Mrs. Gable," said Leo. "Oh, our boy is back. But Rose didn't make it, poor thing. She always dreamed of seeing you married. And you, son, you've come with your wife. What a beauty." No matter how much Leo explained that Lucy was not his wife, no one seemed to hear him. By morning, the whole town knew that Rose's grandson had not come alone, but with a wife from the city. At the funeral, Leo cried, and on his knees asked his grandmother for forgiveness, and Lucy's heart broke at the sad sight. As Rose had wanted, the entire town came to the post-funeral reception, and the tables were laden with food. Lucy had ordered it all to somehow ease the pain of the man she had come to consider her own, though she dared not admit it. The townspeople thanked Leo for his respect in inviting everyone, from young to old, to the reception. He gave each of them something to remember Rose by. To some, a large terry cloth towel, to others, a wall clock, a book, or even a color television. People were surprised, and he would say, "I'm going to sell the house anyway, so take what you like." Leo kept for himself his grandmother's handmade quilt, a vintage music box, and a set of silver spoons and forks. Only one small old woman took nothing, but looked sullenly at Leo and his wife. When everyone had left, she lunged at him with her fists. "Why are you crying over your grandma? You're the one who put my granddaughter in her grave, you monster. And here you are, married to a beauty, throwing money around. What about me, without my darling girl? What am I supposed to do?" The old woman, with tears in her eyes, beat Leo with her tiny, dry fists and cursed him up and down while he stood there silently. Lucy wanted to intervene, but Leo signaled for her not to interfere. Very soon, the old woman ran out of steam and, hunched over, sat down on a bench. Leo sat down next to her. "Forgive me, Mrs. Davison. I'm guilty for letting Laura take the wheel that day. She was just so stubborn. I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Yes, Laura was stubborn. The old woman looked at Leo with eyes sunken from grief. "That girl caused so much trouble. I'm still dealing with it. And you, forgive me too. My soul couldn't bear it. I'm a bitter old woman. Grief will make you howl like that. I only just understood that when I lost someone dear to me," said Leo and wiped his eyes. "Let me know if you need anything. The roof patched, the house shored up, the garden tilled. I'll do it all." Mrs. Davison patted Leo on the back. "There is one thing, but I'll tell you about it later. For now, I have to go. I have things to do." Mrs. Davison left, and Leo and Lucy sat for a long time, afraid to break the silence of the orphaned house. 2 days later, Leo sold his grandmother's house to the town council because he didn't want to be reminded of the loss he had suffered there. And Lucy understood him perfectly. On the way back, Leo said, "Now that the house is gone, I have nowhere to come back to." "What do you mean, nowhere?" "What about Mrs. Davison?" said Lucy. "I think we'll be back here again. My heart tells me so." Soon, Leo bought a car and started working as a private driver, but that wasn't enough for him. He wanted to provide for Lucy so she wouldn't have to work late into the evenings, especially since he had sincerely fallen in love with her and suspected his feelings were mutual. Lucy's birthday was approaching, and Leo began to quietly prepare for it. Since Lucy insisted that her friend continue to live in her house until he got back on his feet, Leo decided to give her an unforgettable gift. However, he didn't know what his beloved woman dreamed of. To ask directly would be to spoil the surprise. Although Leo understood that Lucy's friends, especially Jenna, to put it mildly, disliked him, he had to turn to them for help. Mustering his courage, he arranged a meeting with all 3 of Lucy's friends. To make a good impression, Leo bought a decent suit and even made an appointment at the salon Lucy went to. "Have a seat, dear. Don't be afraid." "My, you're overgrown. And your hands? Look at your hands," exclaimed the stylist. "But don't worry, we'll fix everything." "What's wrong with my hands?" Leo asked, frightened, examining his palms. He had never been to such places in his life, considering them an extravagance for a man. But for Lucy's sake, he was ready to make what he considered sacrifices. Are you a construction worker? Why are your nails so unkempt, your palms so rough? The stylist took Leo's hand in hers. Well, we'll clean them up, trim the cuticles. It's a Shugo-minute job. What are you going to trim? Leo was getting truly scared and wanted to leave, but the stylist sat him back down in the chair. Now, sir, are you going on a date with a lady or not? I am, Leo squeaked timidly, looking at the manicure set. Then don't fidget. We'll make you look great. Would you like some coffee? The stylist smiled. Leo nodded silently and saw another girl walking towards him with a cup of hot drink and a chocolate pastry. It was clear that the salon staff knew how to handle men like Leo, jokingly calling them sweet savages among themselves. Whether it was the tasty pastry, the aromatic coffee, or the friendly attitude of the staff, Leo suddenly said bravely, looking at the stylist, "Let's begin." That's the spirit, the stylist smiled. And we'll turn on the game for you on TV. When Leo left the salon, he was unrecognizable. His hair was perfectly styled, his skin was well groomed, and for the first time in his life, his hands were smooth, not rough like sandpaper, and his polished nails shone with cleanliness. In this state, Leo appeared before the women's council that Lucy's friends had arranged for him. As soon as he entered the cafe, half the female population turned their heads in his direction. A subtle trail of men's cologne followed him, the cherry on top of his salon treatment. Am I late? He asked amiably to Jenna and her two other friends. They gaped at Leo, as if he weren't himself but someone famous, not giving them a chance to recover, and mentally thanking the salon stylist for not letting him run away. He gave each woman a luxurious, long-stemmed, thornless rose. Lucy's friends beamed and stared at Leo with surprised eyes. He casually said to them, "Why are you only drinking coffee? That's not right, since I'm the one who invited you. So please, order whatever you wish, and I'll pay." They certainly didn't expect to hear that from an almost stranger who they had previously found unpleasant. Seeing their confusion, Leo called the waitress. "My dear friend, please take these lovely ladies' orders and bring the check to me. Deal?" The waitress glanced around the table, nodded, and then said admiringly, "What a man." At that, the dam of distrust towards Leo finally broke, and Jenna finally asked what Leo had been waiting to hear. "Leo, how can we help you?" Over a delicious lunch, they collectively decided what to give Lucy for her birthday. And the women were the first to learn about Leo's intentions regarding their friend. Everyone, including the pragmatic Jenna, was thrilled. Thus, Leo gained 3 loyal friends. As Leo was returning home, pleased with his accomplished mission, he noticed an old woman near the entrance who looked very much like his Grandma Rose. The old woman was carrying a heavy bag of potatoes, rubbing her hunched back. "Ma'am, let me help you with that." And Leo deftly took the bag. "Oh, goodness me, thank you, young man. What a considerate young generation we have," the old woman rejoiced. "I'm not so young anymore. I'm in my 30s, Leo laughed. "I live in your building, in apartment 10. My name is Leo." "Oh, Leo, I'm so old that anyone under 50 is a young man to me." "So you're Lucy's husband, then," the old woman concluded. "She's a good girl, don't you hurt her." "And I'm Catherine Peterson. Well, you can call me Mrs. Peterson. I live here on the first floor, which I'm very happy about. My legs aren't what they used to be. Ah, old age is no joy." Leo helped Mrs. Peterson carry the bag all the way to her kitchen and, as he was leaving, noticed that the curtain rod in the living room had fallen and the curtains were lying on the floor. Without a word, Leo put the rod back in place and straightened the curtains. "My, you're handy. Lucy is lucky to have you. Is there anything else that needs doing? Just say the word, and I'll do it right now." Mrs. Peterson suddenly teared up. "My husband passed away 20 years ago. Now everything is falling apart, leaking, and not working. Handymen come, but they only do enough so they can come back again and squeeze more money out of an old woman. They have no pity. They don't understand that my pension is small." Leo silently took off his jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his white shirt. Show me what needs to be done, ma'am. Mrs. Peterson clasped her hands, not believing her luck, and began to fuss. Oh my goodness! Wait! You'll stain your suit and shirt. Don't mind, Leo. Wear my husband's clothes. They're clean, just a little worn. My dear man didn't get to wear them much. I'll be right back. And the old woman hurried into the bedroom, from where she brought a tracksuit and a t-shirt with an old sports logo. Leo didn't argue, not wanting to spoil the neighbor's happiness, and put on what he was given. The suit fit well, and Mrs. Peterson was pleased. Eat up, Leo. I'll bake you some more. I know you young people don't have time to mess with dough, and at least I'll have someone to look after. My husband and I never had children, and you're so good at this. You could start your own business, Mrs. Peterson declared businesslike. I saw something like it on TV. Leo even stopped chewing. You know, that's an idea, ma'am. I can do everything. Fix things, arrange deliveries. How did I not think of that before? You're welcome, Mrs. Peterson flushed with pleasure. And I'll get you clients. You know how many old ladies like me there are? A dime a dozen. And they both laughed, estimating how much work Leo would have. When Leo, inspired by Mrs. Peterson's idea, burst into the apartment, Lucy's jaw dropped when she saw him. Explain to me why you're wearing clothes that look like you just ran a marathon from the 1980s. My grandpa had a tracksuit like that. The haircut is nice, though. It suits you, said Lucy. I'm starting my own company, Leo said joyfully. Mrs. Peterson gave me the idea. Can you believe it? This is for you. And Leo handed her a whole bag of baked goods. Well, there goes my diet, exclaimed Lucy, and took a large, satisfying bite. My girls will help you with starting the business? The council of friends, in the same composition, gathered at Lucy's house the next evening. Together, they drafted a business plan and calculated the initial costs. The money from selling his grandmother's house was just enough. Lucy offered to help with taking incoming orders, and Jenna with advertising their small project. Mrs. Peterson provided invaluable help by telling all the old ladies in the neighboring courtyards about the appearance of a good guy with golden hands. He can do everything, absolutely everything, she boasted to her neighbors. Fix pipes, replace a window pane, repair floors. He's a gem, not a man. He's an orphan. His name is Leo. And he has a good girl, respectful of us old folks. And his prices aren't high, not like others who charge an arm and a leg, and he works fast. And what's the company called? The neighbors were clearly interested. Your helper. I suggested it to him. Mrs. Peterson answered proudly. Now I have free help for life. See how lucky I am. What can I say? He's like a grandson to me. I even feel like living again. So, friends, let's help the kids get started. Tell the others, and place orders yourselves. The old ladies nodded in agreement and took business cards with Leo's phone number from Mrs. Peterson's hands. Mrs. Peterson, better than anyone, knew how well word of mouth works with a living example like herself. The very next day, Leo was swamped with orders, so much so that he was booked a week in advance and the calls were endless. But despite this, he did not forget to organize Lucy's birthday with the help of her friends. The hardest part was choosing a gift, especially such a difficult one. They decided to hold the celebration at a summer house by the river that belonged to Jenna. When it was time to congratulate the birthday girl, Leo quietly slipped out of the house to meet Eugene, who had brought the gift for Lucy right on time. When the hostess of the party opened the large box, she teared up at the sight of her gift. How lovely! I've dreamed of this my whole life. From the box, wagging its tail, came a purebred pug puppy. The puppy yapped loudly. Around the puppy's neck was a ribbon with a tiny envelope. Thank you, my love, said Lucy, and hugged Leo around the neck. What's in the envelope? Open it, he smiled. Opening the envelope, Lucy read the note aloud. Lucy, you will make Leo the happiest man in the world. Will you marry him? When she looked at Leo, he was already down on one knee, holding out a gold ring. Will you marry me? He asked again. Lucy extended a trembling hand towards him and answered quietly, yes. The guests watched in surprise at the birth of a new family, silent as if mesmerized, while the couple embraced. I knew it. Eugene broke the silence. addressing a woman he liked. After all, this puppy is from my kennel. By the way, my name is Eugene, but for you, just Gene. Jenna looked at the tall man in his 40s who was speaking to her and smiled. How interesting. I've never been to a kennel, and I'm Jenna. Eugene was delighted with the response and joyfully announced, "Then I invite you to my kennel tomorrow. Give me your address. I'll pick you up in the evening, and tonight I'll walk you home. I can tell by the glass of champagne in your hand that you didn't drive. It's dangerous for such a beautiful woman to go home alone late at night. Are you married?" "No, I'm single." "You're quite forward," Jenna laughed. She was liking this direct man more and more. "Give me your address right away?" "Why wait?" Eugene was surprised. "You only live once." Thus, thanks to Lucy's unusual gift, who was immediately named Bob, another couple was formed. The next day, Lucy and Leo filed for a marriage license at City Hall, with only close friends and family present. They didn't forget to invite Mrs. Peterson. Best wishes to the happy couple, she congratulated the bride and groom. "I'll drink a glass to you, just this once." "Oh my," it rhymed, when Mrs. Peterson emptied her glass, and so dashingly smashed it on the stone floor of the restaurant, the waiter standing nearby jumped in surprise. "Well, Grandma, you're something else," he said. To which Mrs. Peterson replied, wiping her mouth with a napkin, "It's not every day your grandson gets married. Now I'm not just wasting away alone. Now I have joy in my life. And you know, son, we're not immortal." The waiter looked at the old woman in surprise, went into the back room, and called someone, then smiled upon hearing a, "Hello? Grandma, how are you doing? I'll come visit on the weekend." Immediately after the wedding, the newlyweds went to an island resort for their honeymoon. The trip was a gift from their friends. Leo had never been abroad, so he savored every minute in the beautiful hotel and on the lounge chair by the ocean. "You know, my love," he said to Lucy, sipping a cocktail, "when I expand my company and make some money, we'll fly here every 6 months." Lucy smiled sadly in response, and Leo immediately noticed it. "Why are you sad? Don't you like it here?" "What are you talking about?" "I love it," Lucy sighed. "But remember I told you I can't have children, so we'll have to come to the sea just the two of us, and envy those who come here with their kids." And just after her words, a small ball hit Leo in the head. A little kid had awkwardly thrown his toy. Or maybe they're envying us right now? Leo laughed and gave the ball back to the toddler, who was stumbling and lisping an apology in German. His parents grabbed the boy and, after a brief apology for his behavior, dragged him away. The little boy looked back, and Leo waved to him, and the boy, laughing, made a funny face. Watching this scene, Lucy's heart clenched. She felt guilty for not being able to give Leo the happiness of becoming a father, and she wanted to have a child so much. Soon they were invited to visit a local shark farm, and the thought of children was somehow forgotten under the impression of meeting the predatory fish. They returned home, rested and cheerful. Just as Lucy opened the door with her key, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "You've got mail! So many letters, even a certified one." Mrs. Peterson was right there, at 7:00 the morning, as if she had been waiting by the window, looking for the taxi that was supposed to bring the travelers. And it would be foolish to think otherwise, knowing the neighbor's character. "Did you miss us, Mrs. Peterson?" Leo asked cheerfully. "We thought about you many, many times, and we brought you so many gifts, you'll be shocked, Grandma." "Really?" Mrs. Peterson's face lit up with a smile. "Then you go wash up from your trip, and I'll bring some hot pancakes with sour cream." And handing Leo a stack of mail, the old woman hurried down the stairs, not waiting for the elevator. Half an hour later, all three of them were sitting at the dining table, eating Mrs. Peterson's delicious cooking. And under the table, Bob, who had gotten quite fat on Grandma's food, was begging for a piece. "You know, Grandma, they had everything at that resort, but you definitely can't find pancakes like yours," Leo praised the neighbor's cooking, eating with great appetite. Mrs. Peterson even blushed from such praise. Of course, no one had ever appreciated her culinary masterpieces before, and when they gave her a luxurious silk robe, a summer suit of the finest linen, soft leather shoes, and a fashionable sun hat with sunglasses, topping it all off with unseen exotic fruits. The old woman was speechless. She pressed the expensive gifts to her chest and began to cry. "Grandma, what's wrong? Didn't you like them?" Lucy hugged the old woman and kissed the top of her head like a child. "I liked them. I liked them very much," Mrs. Peterson sobbed. "I thought I wouldn't live to see such happiness. When my grandchildren would give me something. You're like my own family to me." Noticing that Lucy's lips were also trembling and that there were about to be 2 crying women in the house, Leo decided to distract them and could think of nothing better than to discuss the mail. "Look at this. They raised the utility bills again," he exclaimed, noticing out of the corner of his eye that Mrs. Peterson had stopped crying. "And what's this?" "Ah, an invitation to a conference for small businesses. That's me." "Okay. And what's this? A certified letter from my hometown? Interesting what's in there." Leo opened the envelope, and as his eyes scanned the lines, reading the contents of the message, his face darkened. "What does it say?" Lucy asked, wiping her eyes. "It's nothing." Leo waved his hand and forced a smile. "I'm just tired." If Lucy hadn't been so tired and teary-eyed, she would have noticed that something was wrong with her husband and that this letter was the cause. But she suddenly felt how much she wanted to sleep and yawned. "Oh, I've overstayed my welcome, kids. I'll go home, and you get some rest. Forgive an old woman for being nosy, and thank you for the wonderful gifts. I'll remember them forever. Or for however long I have left," Mrs. Peterson laughed. "You're not an old woman, Mrs. Peterson," Lucy reassured her. "You just try to live a long time and make us happy." Mrs. Peterson's words were like balm to Lucy's soul, and she went home with a light heart. Lucy walked Bob, fell into bed exhausted, and immediately fell asleep. But sleep would not come for Leo. Instead, various thoughts filled his head. He decided not to tell his wife what was in the letter, and giving the puppy a part of his pillow, he fell asleep. In the morning, Lucy woke up early and decided to treat her husband by making quick waffles. Topping them with a generous portion of whipped cream, she went to wake Leo. "Get up, sleepyhead," she said as she entered the bedroom, but she immediately stopped short, surprised to find her husband already dressed and packing a suitcase. "Where are you going?" "Don't tell me you're trying to run away from me," Lucy tried to joke, although she was completely bewildered at the moment. Leo froze and turned pale, knowing full well that he was hurting his beloved. "I'm not running away. How could you think that about me? Something urgent came up. I'll tell you later, I promise." "There's just no time for it right now. Believe me," Leo said curtly. "Well, will you have some waffles before your trip?" Lucy asked, trying not to show her hurt. "Of course, I'll eat anything you give me, and if I can't, I'll take it with me." "I'll grab a thermos of tea too," Leo replied readily, and went to the kitchen. While he was eating, Lucy decided to see what he had packed and if he had forgotten a change of underwear, and she was very surprised to find an old wooden horse in the suitcase. The horse was so small it fit in the palm of her hand. The paint had peeled off in places, but the toy was very cute, with a mane of real hair and a leather saddle. Lucy had seen this horse before. Leo had taken it from his grandmother's house when he sold it. Who are you taking this horse to? And why are you afraid to tell me, my dear friend?" "I can't just let this go," Lucy thought, and turned on the location tracking function on her husband's phone to know where he was. Right now, Lucy's phone showed a map where it was clear that her husband's phone was at home. Pleased with herself, Lucy went to the kitchen to finish her breakfast. When Leo was leaving, he looked back and said to Lucy, who was eagerly awaiting some explanation, "I love you, and I don't want you to worry. I'll be back tomorrow and tell you everything," he said. "It's just not my secret to tell, you understand." Lucy nodded and hugged her husband goodbye, confident that she had done the right thing. When Leo's car drove away from the house, Lucy rushed to her phone to track her husband's route. She thought he was heading to another city, but that was not the case. "What does this mean?" Lucy exclaimed when she saw the arrow representing her husband's car heading towards his hometown. "What have you forgotten there, darling? Or rather, who?" Without a second thought, she pulled on a tracksuit and grabbed her car keys. "In pursuit," she shouted to herself and laughed, just like in the movies. What an adventure, Lucy. Bob, you're in charge. Let everyone in, let no one out. Got it? Woof, the puppy replied, and ran to make a puddle under the table. Lucy got in her car and headed for the town. She knew the way well. And suddenly, the memory of that letter he hadn't read in front of her and Mrs. Peterson came to her. Could it be about that letter? What was written in it? Soon, the town of Oak Creek appeared. The navigator on her phone led Lucy to an old cottage surrounded by a crooked fence. Stopping the car behind some bushes so it wouldn't be seen, Lucy quietly closed the door and went to the gate. Next to the house, she saw her husband's car, from whose open-door music from a cartoon was playing softly. "You've got to be kidding me." Lucy got even angrier. "You're having fun here while I'm going out of my mind." Lucy was ready to make a scene if necessary, because she couldn't stand liars. But her anger gave way to curiosity, bordering on the fear of losing her husband. Then Lucy saw a little boy of about 4 in the yard. He was sitting on a homemade swing and playing with that same wooden horse from the suitcase that had so alarmed Lucy in the morning. "A man gave it to me. Maybe he's my dad." The boy was showing off the toy to a rooster that was strutting importantly near the swing, looking for grains. The child's words made Lucy's heart ache, and resentment flooded her mind. She quietly, so as not to scare him, walked past the boy and snuck through the open doors, wanting to expose her husband. For a moment, Lucy froze in the entryway, afraid of what she would see in the house, something that would forever make her lose faith in love and the existence of real men. But then, shaking off her uncertainty with an effort of will, she opened the door leading into the house. What she saw shocked Lucy. People were sitting at a table, eating from covered dishes, and talking quietly. On a nightstand by the bed was a portrait of an old woman in a black frame. Looking closer, Lucy was horrified to recognize the angry old woman, Mrs. Davison, who had yelled at Leo at his grandmother's funeral. So her husband had come to her memorial reception. But why? This question confused Lucy even more, and she leaned against the stove, feeling weak. "Lucy, how did you get here?" Leo got up from the table. All eyes turned to Lucy, which made her feel very uncomfortable. "Explain yourself now," Lucy managed to say, feeling the resentment from the situation building up inside her. A little more, and her nerves would give way. "Come, I want you to meet someone." Leo kissed his wife on the forehead and took her hand. They went out into the yard and, scattering the chickens, headed towards the little boy who was playing with a shovel in a pile of sand. "See this boy?" said Leo, and Lucy nodded. "His name is Milo. He's Laura's son. The one who died in the accident because of me. He doesn't have a father. So he's an orphan. I didn't know anything about him." Apparently, on that day, Laura was coming from the city to pick him up. Milo doesn't remember his mother. He only knew Mrs. Davison. "Here, read the letter." "I just didn't want to upset you. You were so happy after our vacation." Lucy unfolded the notebook sheet, where the following was written in an unsteady hand. "Hello, Leo. Your old neighbor, Sue Gable, is writing to you. We have a tragedy here, son. Mrs. Davison passed away, and we had her service 3 days ago. But we don't know what to do with the little boy. The boy is Laura's son. They say she had him in the city, but that's not the point. Mrs. Davison didn't want to tell you about her great-grandson. She was a proud woman and wouldn't accept any help. She was still grieving for her granddaughter. We're old. They won't let us take custody of Milo, and we feel bad about sending him to foster care. Maybe you can help? After all, you and Laura were friends as children. With respect, Aunt Sue." Lucy was in shock from what she had heard. Shame washed over her in a hot wave, and she blushed. "So that's why she scolded you so much at your grandmother's funeral," Lucy gasped. She was afraid for her great-grandson. She understood that sooner or later he would be left alone. Oh my God, what a tragedy. It's hard to even imagine what was in her heart. And the horse was a childhood gift from Laura to me for my birthday. "I used to put it under the Christmas tree," said Leo. Lucy burst into tears and clung to her husband. "Forgive me, Leo. I'm so stupid. I thought you were cheating on me. And that suspicious toy drove me crazy. Oh my God. I feel so sorry for the little boy. Leo stroked Lucy's head and kissed her on the top. Lady, why are you crying? The little boy was standing next to Lucy, holding out the horse to her. Here, take it. You can play. Do you want me to teach you how to make sandcastles? I do. Lucy smiled and extended her hand to the little boy. The sunlight played in Milo's curly hair, and his big blue eyes, framed by long lashes, looked trustingly at Lucy. The little boy held out the small wooden horse and placed it in the strange woman's hand. Come on, he said, and they walked away before the astonished eyes of Leo, who was frozen in surprise. Through the open window that led from the house to the street, people were watching and wondering how Milo had so quickly become acquainted with Leo's city wife. Everyone was silent and watched what would happen next. And Milo was pulling the tear-stained Lucy into the thick of the garden, and then he suddenly stopped. Are you my mommy? You found me? He asked, looking her straight in the eye. Lucy froze on the spot, and her heart began to beat like crazy. I found you, she said quietly and knelt before the little boy. Forgive me, son, for taking so long to find you. Mommy, I waited for you for so long. Milo hugged Lucy around the neck and didn't let go. I'll never get lost again, Lucy replied, crying. Not even for $500 million? Milo asked, sobbing. Never in my life, Lucy answered, because you are my beloved son. First, Aunt Sue started wailing, and then a chorus of crying erupted. It was the elderly women, sobbing as they watched the scene. Leo turned to them and said, hiding tears of joy, All right, cut the waterworks. We've got happiness here.